The pay was $45 an hour. For a college kid in 2024, that's not a job, that's a miracle. But if I had known what was actually being kept behind the reinforced steel of Shift 4, I would have stayed broke. I would have stayed far, far away. My name is Elias, and I was a night guard at St. Jude's Asylum in Ohio. Everyone thinks that place has been empty since the late 90s, but that's the first lie they tell you. I didn't just find dust and cobwebs. I found Dr. Eris Thorne's personal logs. And I found out that the people who went missing in this town over the last 30 years, they never actually left the city limits. My supervisor, a guy named Miller, told me on my first day to never, under any circumstances, look at the thermal feed for sub-level 3. So of course, like an idiot, I looked. And what I saw wasn't a person. It wasn't a ghost. It was something else. Something that shouldn't be alive. Have you ever wondered why some abandoned buildings still have a massive electric bill? I'm going to show you exactly why. St. Jude's was built in 1952, right in the heart of rural Ohio, tucked away behind a bunch of cornfields and dead woods. Back then, it was one of those state-of-the-art facilities for the criminally insane. Real classic horror movie stuff, right? I grew up 10 miles away from it. Everyone in town had a story. Don't go near the gates, don't look at the windows, the usual urban legends. By 1994, the state officially shut it down due to funding issues, or so the local paper said. I was a normal guy, just trying to finish my degree and pay rent. When I saw the listing for site security on a sketchy job board, I didn't think twice. The interview was at a generic office building, not even at the asylum. Miller, the guy who hired me, looked like he hadn't slept since the Bush administration. He was twitchy, kept checking his watch. He told me the job was simple: sit in the guard shack, watch the monitors, and if I heard anything from the basement, whisper, ignore it. Everything felt fine for the first week. It was boring. Just me, some lukewarm coffee, and 16 screens showing empty hallways. But on the 8th night, I noticed something weird. The electric meter for the building was spinning like a damn ceiling fan. That's a lot of power for a building that's supposed to be dead, right? It happened at exactly 3:14 a.m. I was scrolling on my phone when the monitor for sub-level 2 just glitched. It didn't go black, it turned into this static, but beneath the noise, I could see something moving. I leaned in, thinking it was just a glitchy sensor. But then, the audio kicked in. It sounded like wet leather being dragged over broken glass. Screech, slap, screech, slap. I looked at the thermal camera. Everything was blue, meaning cold, but then this massive bloom of white-hot heat appeared in the center of the morgue. It wasn't human-shaped, it was too tall, like 7 feet tall but skinny as a rail. I grabbed my radio and called Miller. I was like, "Hey man, we've got a massive squatter in the basement or a heater just exploded." There was just silence on the other end. Then Miller's voice came through, totally flat, no emotion. "Elias, get away from the monitor. Don't look at it. Go to the break room and stay there until 6 a.m. That's an order." I was freaked out. No cap, my hands were shaking. I didn't go to the break room. I went to the file room instead, because I realized Miller wasn't surprised. He wasn't scared. He was protective, like he was guarding a secret, not a building. And that's when I saw the first logbook. It wasn't from 1994. The last entry was dated from yesterday. I started digging through the archived boxes. Most of it was boring medical billing stuff, but then I found a folder marked Project Hemlock. Inside were these Polaroids. You guys, these weren't photos of patients. They were photos of experiments. I saw a man, maybe 40 years old, but his skin looked like it had been replaced with something translucent. You could see his veins. They weren't blue, they were black. I found a list of names: Subject 402, Subject 403, and next to them, local names. Names I recognized from missing posters at the grocery store. Sarah Jenkins, Mike Patterson. These were people who ran away in the early 2000s. The documents had a seal on them. It wasn't the state of Ohio. It was a private defense contractor called Ethelgard Solutions. I realized St. Jude's never actually closed. They just stopped letting the public see what was happening inside. Then I heard it from the hallway outside the file room. Screech, slap, screech, slap. Something was in the building with me, and it wasn't Miller. I hid under the heavy oak desk, holding my breath so hard my lungs burned. I saw the feet pass by the door. Long, gray, spindly feet with no shoes. The skin was peeling off in strips. This wasn't a cover-up for a crime. This was a cover-up for a factory. I followed the sound. I know. Rule number 1 of horror movies, don't follow the sound. But I had to know. It led me to the laundry room in the basement. I pushed aside a heavy rack of old uniforms and found it. A state-of-the-art elevator in a building that's supposed to be a ruin. The keypad was still active. I looked at the floor and found a dropped ID badge. It belonged to a Dr. Richard Harrison, level 5 clearance. I swiped it. The doors hissed open like a spaceship. The elevator only had one button, -4. When the doors opened, the smell hit me first. It didn't smell like a hospital. It smelled like a butcher shop mixed with bleach. I was looking at a laboratory that looked like something out of a billion-dollar sci-fi movie. There were rows of glass cylinders, hundreds of them. And they weren't empty. They were filled with people, or things that used to be people. They were suspended in this thick, amber fluid. I saw a digital display over one of them. Biological asset 1014. Status viable. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about curing the insane. It was about using them as raw material. St. Jude's was a farm, and I was standing in the middle of the harvest. Suddenly, every light in the room turned red. I had to move fast. I ducked into a control booth and started grabbing every hard drive and folder I could see. I found the mission statement, Project Lazarus. It wasn't a government project, not exactly. It was funded by a group of private investors who wanted to live forever. But you can't just live forever in an old body. You need parts, fresh parts. For 70 years, St. Jude's had been harvesting the unwanted, the homeless, the mentally ill, the runaways, people the world wouldn't miss. They weren't just taking organs, they were transferring consciousness into assets. Those tall, spindly things I saw on the monitors, those were the failed attempts, the grafts that didn't take. They called them echoes. The echoes were kept in the basement to deal with intruders like me. The motive was so simple, it was sickening. It was just rich people who were too scared to die, turning the rest of us into spare tires. The victim count in these files, it was over 4,000 people. 4,000 souls wiped out so some billionaire could have a new set of lungs or a younger brain. And then I saw the most recent entry. It was my name. Elias Thorne, security, asset potential, high. They didn't hire me to watch the building. They hired me to see if I was a match. The sirens were screaming. I heard the elevator hum. They were coming down. I didn't have time to go back the way I came. I saw a ventilation duct and picked the grate open. I crawled. My heart was thumping against the metal so hard I thought it would burst. Then I heard it behind me. Not a human footstep, a skittering sound. Scritch, scritch, scritch. It was one of the echoes. It had crawled into the vents with me. I looked back and saw its face for a split second when the red light flashed. It didn't have eyes, just smooth, translucent skin over where eyes should be. and its mouth was sewn shut with silver wire. It reached for my ankle. Its fingers were like cold, damp marble. I kicked as hard as I could, feeling its jaw crack under my boot. I scrambled forward, skinning my elbows, bleeding all over the metal. I saw a light at the end of the shaft. A trash chute. I didn't think. I just threw myself into the dark. I fell for what felt like miles, hitting the sides, screaming my lungs out until I slammed into a pile of medical waste at the bottom. I was outside, in the woods, covered in blood and old bandages. But I was out. I ran. I didn't stop until I hit the main road. A trucker found me at 5 a.m. He thought I'd been in a car wreck. I couldn't even speak. I just clutched that hard drive to my chest like it was my own soul. I went to the police in the next county over. I didn't trust the local guys. I told them everything. I showed them the ID badge. I showed them the files. 2 days later, a task force went to St. Jude's. Do you know what they found? Nothing. They told me the building was empty. No elevator, no lab, just an old, rotting hospital filled with asbestos and squatters. Miller disappeared. The company, Ethelgard Solutions, their office was a shell. No employees, no records. The police told me I'd had a psychotic break due to stress. They tried to commit me to a different hospital. I had to go off the grid. I've been moving every 3 months. I lost my degree. I lost my family. They think I'm a drug addict on a bender. But I still have the drive. They didn't get it. It's encrypted with military-grade software. It's taking me years to crack each folder. And every time I open a new file, I wish I hadn't. It's 2026 now. If you go to that spot in Ohio today, you won't find a scary old asylum. You'll find the Heritage Lofts, high-end apartments for young professionals, industrial chic, they call it. But here's the thing. I've been watching the building records. The Heritage Loft uses 4 times the amount of electricity as any other building in the city. And the basement? It's private storage for a holding company. Residents aren't allowed down there. I sometimes sit in the parking lot at night. I watch the people go in. Happy, successful, thinking they're living the dream. They don't know they're sleeping on top of a slaughterhouse. I've started getting emails. No subject line, just coordinates. And yesterday, I found a black envelope under my door. No return address. Inside was a single Polaroid. It was a photo of me, sitting in my car, taken from the woods. They know where I am. They've always known. They're just waiting for me to become viable again. The machine didn't stop. It just got a makeover. Look, here's the real reason I'm telling you this. I finally cracked the last file on the drive this morning. It wasn't a list of victims. It was a list of successes. These people, the ones who got the upgrades, they aren't hiding in bunkers. They're in the news. They're in Congress. They're the CEOs of the apps you use every single day. They don't look like echoes. They look like us, only better, faster. They don't age. If you live in a major city and you see a new luxury development where an old hospital or school used to be, check the basement, check the power bill, but most importantly, look at the people moving in. Really look at them. Do they ever seem to get sick? Do they ever look tired? Or do they look like they're just wearing a suit of skin that's a little too perfect? I have to go now. Someone just pulled into my driveway. A black SUV, no plates. If this video stops abruptly, you know why. Don't trust the new world. It's built on the old one, and the old one is still hungry. They're at the door. Goodbye. Stay in the light.